Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Feldman. This week, we get updates from Laura Zander, Sarah Segal, and Jay Goltz. Laura wonders whether the time she's put into integrating her latest acquisition might have been better spent focusing on her core businesses. Sarah, who has shifted to pursuing smaller clients, asks Laura and Jay to articulate the PR pitch that would interest them. But how do you evaluate the effectiveness of a PR campaign? Does it have to generate sales? Plus, Jay explains why he views confronting his current business challenges as a matter of triage. He also says that if he could write a check for $200,000 and solve his technology problems, he would do it in a heartbeat. Any takers out there? Even in good times, owning and running a business can be a lonely pursuit. Our hope is that these weekly conversations, brought to you by our principal sponsor, The Great Game of Business, will let owners know they are not alone in facing challenges. Same thing with our daily newsletter, the 21 Hats Morning Report, which Inc. magazine named the best newsletter for business owners and which you can subscribe to for free at 21hats.com, where you can also find transcripts of our podcast episodes and lots of other articles and interviews. Joining me this week on the podcast are regulars Jay Goltz, CEO of the Goltz Group, whose companies in Chicago include a picture frame business, artist frame service, and a home furnishing store, Jason Home. Sarah Segal, CEO of Segal Communications, a public relations firm based in San Francisco. And Laura Zander, who is CEO of Jimmy Bean's Wool, a digital yarn store based in Reno, Nevada, and Madelintosh, a yarn manufacturer and distributor based in Fort Worth, Texas. The episode is titled, "The Year So Far? It's Difficult Out There." Welcome, Jay, Sarah, and Laura. It's great to have you here. It seems like every day we're confronted by conflicting messages about how the economy is doing, how businesses are doing. And as I did with a different group here a couple of weeks ago, I'd like to start by just checking in with you guys. We haven't spoken to you in a while, Laura. What's going on with you? Have you bought any more businesses lately?
No, I'm on a diet. Things are good. We bought those two businesses, integrated them. It was rough. And we hit the tipping point about a month ago, 3 weeks ago or so. So I actually haven't traveled in about 3 weeks. We're starting to
What's the tipping point? What do you mean by that?
I mean that we're through the worst part. We're at the top of the hill. So all the pain and suffering, not all, but the majority of the pain and the suffering from the integration is behind us. So we're starting to gain traction. We're starting to get more orders again. We're able to process them. We've got fewer errors. Things have stabilized. So we're on the upswing. We're at kind of the bottom of the hockey stick, I think, of growth. But now with that comes the exhaustion. So, the adrenaline's worn off. And so Jay calls it battle fatigue. So the battle fatigue has just set in. So I'm trying to figure out kind of how to handle that. Do you take a week off? Do you take 2 weeks off? I did take a little bit of time off, but trying to, and I'm spread a little thin. So just trying to recenter now that the fires are out and get back into kind of a regular, an everyday cadence and figure out what that looks like for the next year or two before we do something else to create another battle.
When you say, all the hard stuff's over. So the bottom line I'd like to know is, so you integrated these companies. What does that mean? Did you fire some people that were working at the other companies that just didn't fit that's usually what was the pain? Give us the pain.
The pain was we moved locations. So one of the companies that we brought on was in Arizona and we moved production to Texas. They didn't have anybody that wanted to come to Texas. So we had to train our staff. There was some pain in that originally the deal was the owners would operate the business in Arizona for 2 to 3 months as we were training and as we were able to catch up and learn, and we were going to do a transition. And one of the owners just couldn't do it. So we ended up having to transition. There was almost zero transition, about 1 week's worth of transition. So we were really thrown into the fire very quickly. And, our staff, yes, we hired some people, we fired some people. It's taken us, 5 months to find the right team to be able to do the things that we need done to dye the yarn in the way that needs to be dyed. The former owners, one of them has all the skills. She was really the dye master. So she had all the technical skills and was the craftsman and knew how to do everything. But she lived in Arizona. So we brought her to Texas a couple of times. She would train. And, it just gets messy. Communication gets messy. It was just messy.
When you buy a company, the higher ups are looking for their golden parachute. They're going to walk away with a bunch of cash or whatever the deal is, right? How realistic is it to expect that they'll be in it 100% during the transition?
I can't speak to tech or, office jobs or whatever, but in our experience, and we're working with small businesses, most of the businesses that we've acquired have 10 employees, 5 employees. So it's a much different world. It's 50-50. In this case, there were 2 founders, 2 owners. One of them is still completely dedicated to doing whatever it takes to making sure that things move forward and are successful. And the other one tapped out after about a week. So it depends.
So how many employees were there in Arizona that are now have been laid off? How many people were there?
Maybe 8.
So my question is, that goes on their unemployment. Did you take over the corporate entity, or is that so that's good. So that the unemployment's going to come out of the old company, not from your company.
Correct. Yes.
And that's because you just bought the assets, not the whole.
We just bought the assets. Yeah. We always just do an asset.
That way anybody goes to sue you down the road also.
Correct.
Yeah. I think that's a critical distinction, buying the assets versus buying the company.
100%.
So buying the asset, you're buying the technique and the product and the inventory and the
URL,
whatever the product,
the trademarks, any patents,
the intellectual property.
How do you negotiate like a deal like that? Like how do you put a dollar value on it?
Me personally, because I probably do it a little differently than other people do. I take a look at, it's just their P&L on their balance sheet. So I take a look at their P&L. I see on average over the last 2 to 3, maybe 5 years, depending on if there were big bumps or not, what their profitability is. And then I try to offer something. It's usually about 2 to 3 times what their profitability is, because then I assume it'll take us 2 to 3 years to pay it off. And then I add inventory on top of that.
Well, that's interesting, because the normal number in small businesses, and I just happened to go to a seminar last week and it was the same thing. People usually get 3 to 4 times earnings, but in your case, you said 2, but then you're paying them for the inventory, which probably makes up.
Correct.
So it's in the same neighborhood.
It's probably about the same. Yeah, exactly.
Worst surprise after you bought it? If you could talk to yourself the day before you closed, what would you have told yourself?
It's a really good question. That's funny. I was thinking this morning, I'm like, excuse me. Daggone it. Like, was this the right decision? Was it worth it? I mean, the distraction cost has been the biggest cost for us, right? So should we have been spending this time on our core business? The upside is there are some intangible, unpredictable benefits that we have gotten out of buying this particular company that I didn't see coming. And so it has actually paid for itself in some really weird, interesting, unexpected ways. In other words, as an example, we got a sales rep that they had that we would have never gotten, would have never been on our radar. And he has managed to generate $50,000 just in 1 week on another brand that we carry that we weren't even planning to wholesale. So, and he has taught us some things that we didn't realize, we didn't know. So it's almost like we got an employee in some ways that we weren't expecting that has been just irreplaceable. I mean, the knowledge that I've gotten and that will help us grow all of our businesses over the next few years. I don't know how to put a number on it. I mean, I'm sure I could,
Well, you said intangible. It kind of is tangible. In this case, it's unforeseen benefits. It is tangible. You know how much business he brought in. That's worth a lot.
Yes. And though he's a really good product developer, there's a business development side of this that I didn't see coming. So there's that. And then some of the benefits that we've gotten from the founder, who was the craftsman, the die master, some things that she taught us has saved us $50,000 to $100,000, just in the first year. Like, we had some product that we thought was bad. She was able to fix it. I don't know that we would have ever been able to fix it. We would have either thrown it away or blah, blah, blah. And then, we're not creating more bad product because of the techniques that she's taught us. So there's some little stuff like that. And then, again, more IP stuff, the mill that she works with, or that she worked with, that now we're working with, that's opening up this whole other potential line of business that we probably won't see the benefits of for 2 to 3 years, but I can see already that there are going to be benefits there. So the sales side of things, are not what we thought they would be. And I never expect them to be what we think they're going to be. You can say, yeah, I think we're going to do $1 million because that's what they did, or whatever, pick a number. But you're just guessing. You don't know how many customers you're going to lose. You don't know like how long it's going to take to pick up the techniques. And, we've never done this before. So the sales aren't where we had forecasted that they would be, but they're not horrible either.
I would think you have channel conflict and that somebody says, I'm not buying it, or she's my competitor.
100%. Yep, absolutely. But we've had that. We've had that for years. So we still have that. At the same time, the flip side of that is she knows how to do this, and she understands what it's like to be a local yarn shop owner, and she's been able to do it with these other brands. So I trust her. And by buying this business and forming a distribution group, what we didn't realize really was going to happen was that people start, like sales reps, all kinds of people have been flocking to us. Like, it's almost like they see us as the future. So I don't know. I think we're positioning ourselves in our industry as a player in the wholesale market, which we hadn't really been before. So it's just very interesting. We're evolving. So this was a big, huge part of evolution.
Just to be clear, the channel conflict that you're referring to is that you have a company, Jimmy Bean's Wool, that sells to yarn enthusiasts over the internet, but you also sell wholesale to yarn shops around the country that theoretically could be selling to the same customer, correct?
Correct. Yes.
I'm a retailer from birth, so I never was used to this. And you just brought up something that I've had. The whole dynamic of sales reps is an important part of the business. And like as a retailer, I never had any sales reps. So what I've learned is we started out my wholesale business, Bella, it's been 20 years already. And we were just selling cool, interesting stuff that you couldn't get anywhere. And I never really appreciated the dynamics of the rep thing. And what I've learned is lately, our line's starting to become a major line for our reps, whereas in the beginning, It was the nice, cool, interesting line. Now, all of a sudden, because the shift in the industry and we've got better suppliers than a lot of people, we're becoming important. And I look at the checks that I write every month to the reps. They used to be, $2,000 a month. It was paying their gas money or their hotel bills. Now, all of a sudden, I'm writing some $5,000 checks to the reps. And it's exactly what you're talking about. The rep thing is an important part of the dynamics of being in the wholesale business. And you also came from the same end I did. You were selling retail. It's a whole new game when you're dealing wholesale. It's about the reps.
Yep. Yeah, that's really interesting. And that's part of the, I don't know, I guess, maybe the light bulb is that, it's a small industry. So there are like some really good reps. There's a handful of A-listers, and they're coming to us. We've asked them for years if they would rep for us, and they've said no. And now they're saying yes.
To me, we have the best reps in the industry now because we've gotten big enough that we can be half their business now versus just a sideline.
Laura, you said before that you've kind of questioned yourself whether all the time and energy that went into this acquisition might have been better spent on your core business. How are your businesses doing overall? Are you meeting revenue expectations?
No, I'm not meeting the forecast, but I'm exceeding what we've done in previous years. So,
How do you feel about that?
Part of me, that's how I always feel. I want to go faster, but at the same time, I have to recognize and be proud of what we've done and recognize that we are doing more than we were. And the traction that I talked about, the first 3 months, there was a lot of distraction. There was a lot of learning, we weren't producing as much. And it just is what it is. So if I actually take the first 3 months of the year out, then I think we are meeting our goals. We're getting very, very, very close. I'm just a jerk. I'm always going to want us to hit the forecast, and I'm always going to want us to hit that top line. And so I'm always going to be a little disappointed, but I'm trying to practice being really positive and recognizing the wins. And there are some unexpected wins. As I mentioned, there are some things that I didn't see coming that, have surpassed my expectations. And today's probably a hard day to ask because I am coming off of, 4 months of just pushing, and frustration after frustration after frustration. And I'm impatient. And so I'm a little tired. But looking back, I'm really proud of what we did. And the fact that objectively, the fact that we made it through, and it only really took us 3 to 4 months is pretty freaking phenomenal. It's pretty awesome. And we just had our big wholesale trade show a couple weeks ago, and we doubled what we did last year. So we're getting traction, and I can't wait for 2 months down the road when we're just flying. We're just totally flying.
Sarah, how are you doing?
That's a good question. I had a little reset last year when we lost a couple big clients. And so I went into this year saying, you know what, when you have too many big clients and one or two of them depart for various reasons, it completely collapses your business as an agency owner, and you're faced with having to lay people off and all of that kind of good stuff. So I went into this year with hey, I'm going to instead build a business based on small to mid-sized clients. And I'm doing that. It does have its challenges, though, because we are close to having 15 clients by the end of next month. And that's a lot of accounts to manage. And I need to hire more junior level people to make sure that I need to build my kind of, internal hierarchy. So nobody is dealing with more than kind of the sweet spot for most people is managing 6 to 8 accounts, right? And so if you have anything more than that, then they're just not focused enough on each client. So it's just making sure that I have enough staff to kind of grow in this fashion. Although I have to say that having a nice meaty client would be really nice. So it's good. I'm paying my bills. We have our lovely little office in San Francisco, and I'm actually negotiating with the landlord to take over the upstairs office as well, because we're having a couple interns starting this summer. I'm anticipating some additional growth before the end of the year, and it's slow and steady kind of wins the race. I'm cautiously optimistic. Let's put it that way.
In the past, we've talked a little bit about your efforts to market your agency to go find clients. Have you done anything different now that you're looking for a different size client?
So what am I doing? I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, I need to get back out there and go to conferences. I was listening to last week's podcast about going to trade shows and stuff and walking the floor, which I understand is not necessarily the best use of your time, but just getting out there and being part of the community. There's Jackie and her book that they wrote, like how that's worked as a marketing tool. I'm just kind of trying to think of the ways that I can introduce myself in a meaningful way that's not salesy, because I don't think that works. It's more giving myself out as like a resource, and then eventually that relationship develops into something else. There are new biz people for PR. There are reps. They're hard to find, though, because they're usually more senior people. So they work for the larger companies that go out and find new business. I would love if there was somebody out there that did it for smaller businesses like myself. But as of yet, I have not found that magical creature to pitch us to prospects.
You said something very interesting. You said that going to trade shows isn't necessarily a good use of your time. I can't imagine what you could do that could be a better use of time. Trade shows have everybody's in the same room. And in one afternoon, you could hit up 50 companies. And then you said, well, you don't want to be too salesy. I don't know why you wouldn't. I just wonder whether you couldn't be a great salesperson going to a trade show and picking up some clients right there on the floor, because it seems like it's shooting fish in the barrel.
You think? I mean, my question is about trade shows. It's not usually the decision makers that are running the booths, right?
Oh, that's not true for the size companies you're talking about. Why wouldn't the owner or the person in charge be at a national trade show? I would absolutely think they're there. They're not just a bunch of salespeople there. That's where business is done. Going to lunch, running into somebody from, trade shows.
100%. Yeah, same.
So Jay and Laura, so you're at a trade show, say you have a booth, and this lovely lady with strawberry blonde hair and a little gray comes up to you. What would be the best pitch that you could hear? How would you like to be sold? PR. I
go to trade shows all the time. I go to conferences. If someone walked up to me and knew about my business, somebody say, Jay, you've got an incredible story. I would love to. I think I could really get you some good. I would absolutely be engaged with them. It doesn't happen because I'm going to make a statement just from being the customer. I can't think of worse salespeople than PR people because they're not out there. No one ever calls. No one ever sends anything. No one ever sends a letter. I would, in fact, engage with someone and I might hire them, but they don't call on me. Now, is it just because I'm a retailer and that's not on the radar? I don't know.
Laura, how about you? What pitch would work with you?
Research. Not just coming in cold and saying, hey, cute booth, I could help you. And not knowing anything about our business, not knowing when we started, not having a pitch for how you could help us. So when we were just a few years into the business, and I would put together packets, and I would research not every single, but all of the booths, like 10 to 15 booths. I would research all about their business. I would figure out how much we've sold of their products, how much we think we could sell. And then I would come up with 3 ideas of how I could work with this business or how they could work with us. And at the time, these were our vendors. So I was asking for maybe a custom product, or maybe we could do this was before social media, but maybe we could do some co-op advertising together, blah, blah, blah. But I made it very individual. And I actually wrote a letter for each one of these booths that I would go by. And I had a nice little folder, that had some info on us and examples of stuff that we've done in the past. And then I would go to each booth and I'm like, hey, I don't want to bug you too much, but I just want you to know, blah, 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 blah. And then here's some more information about us. Here's some ideas on how we could work together. And it was personalized. You can take them a coffee, take them a chocolate bar, just take them something that's a little out of the ordinary, because most people don't do it. They don't have the balls to go up and do the research. And, most people just come in and kind of cold call, and it's kind of lazy.
No, I like that. What we do with prospects in general is we will ask them prior to our initial call or at some point during the conversation, we'll determine who their competitors are. And so we can pull together a pretty comprehensive report on what their competitors are doing in terms of the media space, and basically kind of walk them through what their competitors are doing and where they're falling short and where we might be able to support them. So that's a pretty standard. We can also easily pull, here's a top 5 reporters that you should be reaching out to. If you don't engage with us, please at least talk to these reporters because they'll be interested in your business. But I like the idea of a leave behind. It's kind of old school because, people are so digital nowadays, but giving somebody something memorable.
But it stands out.
I know we have these great branded Stanleys. Everybody needs a Stanley.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I will say, and this is probably just nitpicking words, so feel free to ignore me. But you mentioned, where they fall short. So when I'm at a trade show, the majority of people that come to our booth are our customers, and a good percentage of them are coming to complain. And so the last thing I want to hear is something about how I could do better. So even just rephrasing and, just being like, hey, you could really kill, blah, blah, blah. But just being and I don't know, Jay, I don't know if you have the same experience. I mean, I know I'm just particularly sensitive to that, but what I want to hear while I'm there is how great I am, not how I need to improve.
Absolutely. The other thing, I got to tell you, just viscerally, and people do call me for other stuff. The second they start going, oh, we do business with your competitors, I say to myself, screw you. Yeah. I really don't care.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about my competitors. I don't.
No, I don't.
I think I'd rather hear, this is the interesting part. We got the internet. You can do research in 5 minutes. You can find out anything you want to know. Go to my website. I tell you all about me. It's right there, right? Yeah. So they come and go, wow, Jay, you've got the largest frame place in the country. And then you've morphed into opening a furniture store. It's really an interesting Chicago story. And I even read about, have you been in the papers lately? Because I got to tell you, I think you're an incredible story for Chicago. Very seldom do you read about a Chicago business these days. Most of the retailers in Chicago that were, they're gone.
Right.
I'm one of the few retailers. And I would love to, I think I would absolutely be engaged and interested to talk to that person.
I'm already well aware of how my competitors are kicking my ass. Like, I don't need somebody to tell me that.
In terms of what, Laura? How are they kicking your ass? In PR or in performance?
Everything. Yeah. I mean, the people who are doing better than us are doing better than us. I mean, they do more in sales. Sometimes they have more PR. They've got better events. I mean, that's part of just who I am. And that's why I drive so hard, is to win in some ways. But yeah, I mean, they do better. They have better product. They have a better website. They've got better SEO. They've got better this. They've got better that. I mean, that's part of my job, right? Is to figure out all the ways that the competitors, all the things that they're doing better than us, so that I can figure out how to be better than them. So I'm just hyper aware already. So it never works really well when somebody comes in and says, your competitors are beating you here. And I'm like, no shit. Like, I know that. You don't need to tell me that. Like, help me figure out other ways and other interesting ways to be better.
So Sarah, where do you get the list? If you were to have someone that said, hey, I want you to spend the next week, let's get together, where would you get the list of prospective customers from?
So it's everything from my team flagging new businesses. It's other businesses that I know other agencies are covering, but like they're not getting any press. And I'm like, they're not getting what they pay for. Word of mouth, like people just telling me about opportunities. There's no like list necessarily. It's just doing a lot of online research. I tend to look for companies that, have a certain level of revenue. The reason why is if you go below a certain amount, you're dealing with people that like literally count every penny. So it's not, their PR budget is not a line item. And if they're too small, they don't have somebody managing the PR agency. It's like the owner, which is terrible.
A $2 million company probably can't afford or has the head to go spend 10 grand a month or 15. I was that company, and you're 100% right. There's no point in chasing smaller companies because they're just simply not going to spend the money. But I would think that, so the question to me is, what's the biggest opportunity? People that have good companies that aren't doing any PR, or people that already have a PR firm that aren't doing a great job? And I would think, yeah.
It's both. And we do smaller companies, Jay. The reason why is that sometimes we see a company and we're like, yeah, it's small, but we can help make this company big. Like, we see the promise and value of it. They're not doing any media or influencers or social media right now. And we know if we turn that light on, it's going to transform their business. We have a franchise business that we're working with. We didn't have anything. Now they are booked like through the roof right now. We have a restaurant we started working with that nobody knew about. Now they're like, their Mother's Day weekend was totally booked out, and they have influencers now DMing them, asking them to come because of the work that we did. Like, we sometimes see these smaller companies as like, you know what? We know we can turn the lights on for these folks really quickly and make a difference.
I think the opportunity for you is, I don't think most companies, if you said, hey, how's your PR efforts going? I can't imagine most companies, oh no, I got that down. I think that everybody, Laura, me, everybody knows yeah, I'm sure I could be doing better. I don't know how to do it. And frankly, no one's been calling on me to sell me that service. So it's not like I'm going to wake up tomorrow and go, oh, I'm going to go look for a PR firm today. I wouldn't even know where to start.
I know. Well, that's another thing is I do a lot of research into how people find PR agencies, right? If they're not going through referral. You know, if you're a larger company, a lot of people will turn to their board and say, hey, do you know any good PR agencies? And that's how they find them. But people without that kind of extended executive network will search. I have a blog post on my website, and it is probably the most viewed and read blog post of any blog post we've ever created. And it's, how much do PR agencies cost?
That's funny because I was going to actually ask you that. I was going to ask what the range was, as we were talking about different sizes of business. Jay mentioned $10,000 a month, but I suspect it's not that much.
Well, so it depends. So if you're working with an individual practitioner, like there are people out there and a lot of great people out there that have worked in an agency or have worked in the house, but decided just to go independent, and they'll work for a client, $1,500, $2,000 a month, and all they're doing is pitching. If they're pitching your product, they're independent and they're looking for those opportunities. They don't necessarily have all the tools and resources and capabilities an agency has, but they're pitching you out, right?
Yeah.
Most boutique agencies or smaller agencies start at the $5,000 range. That is the sweet spot, from $5,000. And then you start getting into the $10,000 range when you're talking about, B2B companies. That where there's no consumer appetite and they don't necessarily want only trade coverage. They want to be relevant across the board. So it's a lot more complicated to put them together. So you're doing things like surveys, you're doing things like bylines,
right.
You're putting together this whole gamut. And then, you're adding in things like influencer relations. Influencer relations is a lot of work. It's not just about like, hey, I'm going to give you a product and post about it. There is so much back and forth with every influencer that we work with about like the content that they're going to post, the hashtags they're going to post, the timing that they're going to post. Sometimes they want money. Each influencer probably takes my team about 4 to 5 hours to manage. Just one influencer.
Sure.
I want to go back to something you said before. You said that it is terrible when you have to deal directly with an owner.
It's not terrible. It's just different. It's
well, what's the issue with it? Why is that difficult?
Their money. It's easy. It's their money.
It's not just the money. They don't have the bandwidth for us, right?
That's what I was going to say.
They're dealing with so many other things that like we have started and stopped working with a number of businesses where literally at the end of the day, they called us up and they said, we love you guys, but we feel like we're not doing our part of the job because we don't 100%. Have anybody to give you the new photographs, provide you the details on the new product or service. We're falling short on our side of the project.
Super interesting.
Wow. That's surprising. That surprises me.
But even for a company like, both of yours, having somebody. And they can be junior, like they can be like, this is their second job. It's fine. But at least having somebody internally that can be like, we can go, hey, listen, can you pull us photographs of this new chair or this new dye lot? We'd love some images so we can push that out in a, spring pitch or what have you. Or we want to schedule it out on our social media system. So it's, it goes out of the next couple of weeks. Just having somebody to do those internal tasks that we don't have access to, you can't put a value on that.
And how do you report back on the results? Like, who manages the ROI?
So it depends on the client, right? And so when we start with a client, like our first question for all of our client leads is, what will make you look good to your boss? What metrics do your
that's a great one.
What metrics does your boss look at? What do they like, right? And, we'll add in what they like to look at. But some CEOs and owners, they just love the logo. They want to know that they got in a, Glamour magazine or Architectural Digest or whatever. They like the logo. Some bosses really like mass, quantity over quality. And some want their name in headlines. They want their name in print.
It's not sales, huh?
No. Oh God, we're not sales. That's not what we do.
Well, I know it's not what you do, but at the end of the day, I mean, isn't that, I can't pay you if we don't get an increase in sales.
Well, that's the problem with PR. That's not what PR does. That's what marketing does. PR does not do that. So for example, you do a segment on Good Day Las Vegas or whatever, right? How do you quantify that? Like, how do you tie sales to something that's on broadcast?
I mean, I can watch site traffic. It's not a that day sales, but it's over 6 months, over the next year. I mean, basically, the sales line is increasing. If I see the sales line decreasing, then that's not working.
Yeah, but it's subjective.
But you can't know for sure that's coming from PR.
Right. You don't know that that's coming from PR. We do work with clients where we're saying, okay, create us a promo code, and then we can include that. We can see how many people use that promo code. We do things where when we work with influencers, we give them an affiliate link. And so we can see how many transactions came through that way. Most media publications now, most of the Hearst, the Condé Nast, even New York Times, the Associated Press literally started this, where they're creating roundups of products and services, and that are all based on affiliate links. So it's the 10 suitcases that you should consider for your next travel abroad. You'll literally find this on the Associated Press. They just launched it in March. And if you click on that link and you make that purchase, the Associated Press gets a kickback.
And I guess when I'm thinking sales, I'm talking long-term sales as a result of brand awareness.
Well,
right?
and
so
yeah, and you can, if you have somebody doing your Google Analytics, you can see where some of the traffic is coming from for sure. But if I get you in the New York Times print edition, there's no tracking of that.
I'm not looking for tracking. I'm just looking for health and sales, long term. When I was doing PR, that's when we saw the greatest bump in our revenue.
Yeah.
And it was from being in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and, 5 to 10 different things all at the same time. And I mean, I'm not going back to look at tracking. I mean, you just know that you're getting all these eyeballs, so it's going to result in a boost in awareness and sales.
But a lot of people will be like, well, I need numbers to validate it. And that's not what we're doing. Our job is more brand awareness. We will add in all of those bells and whistles if you give them to us for sure, if that you want to try to quantify it. But we're looking to establish relationships with editors and influencers, and a cadence of content on your social media that follows trends. So you're getting views. We're doing all of these things. So when people encounter your brand, there's a continuity and there's just an awareness, a brand awareness that is consistent across any public facing non-paid advertising.
You know what? Attribution is obviously very difficult with this stuff, but you said the key word. You can try at least. And I'm on public radio and I'm spending a decent amount of money on it. And I'm absolutely confident because I ask customers, do you listen to public radio? Yes. 50% of my customers listen to it. The attribution is difficult, but you do get some anecdotal things. Or I'm sure you've had someone go, oh, I read that article. You do get some anecdotal things. There are people that go, yeah, I heard you on public radio. So it's something. It's frustrating though, because it would be great if every single person that came in from public radio said, oh, I heard you on the radio. And then I have my existing customers. How many of them came in again that maybe weren't thinking about coming in, but heard the ad on the radio?
Totally.
And I can't, that's off the radar screen totally. I mean, they were already in my customer base as a repeat customer. So it's extremely difficult to do that, but I'd still try.
We are running short of time. Jay, I don't want to leave you out. How are your businesses doing?
It's difficult out there. If 40% of the people buy furniture because they moved and interest rates are 7%, so half the people are moving, there's less furniture. And it turns out the entire furniture industry, from what I hear, and I talk to reps, is down at least 20%. And, my store is no different. And it's, there's not much I can do about it except wait it out.
How about picture framing?
Stable, but not, it's not the old days.
Yep.
I mean, it's in my case, it's the baby boomers. The youngest baby boomer is now 60 and they're downsizing. They're not framing pictures mostly. And Do their kids have stuff on the wall? Many of them don't. So it's okay, but it will be better when interest rates get back to something that's not 7%. That's for sure.
Jay, we've talked a number of times, actually over a couple of years, I think, about your struggles with your inventory issues, going back to the early days of COVID. Have you gotten your hands around that? Have you figured that out?
Here's my new thing, which took me too many years to figure out. I will argue, every business owner needs to be their own CFO. The idea that you think you're going to hire someone and just put it on automatic cruise and they'll take care of it, you're putting your life in that hands. And I should have been more involved with the inventory numbers. And now I'm totally into it. That's all I've been doing for the last 6 months. And I'm getting under control. I told the buyers, look, here's what we have. Here's what we need to get it down to. They're all with me. They all know what the number is. And we are getting rid of inventory for the rest of the year. And we're going to get it under control because it got out of control. And I take full responsibility. It's my business. I should have been involved with this more. I'm really good at not paying attention to stuff that I don't get into. There's a reason why I have an accounting degree, but I didn't go into accounting. I like the other stuff. So I'm paying the price and it's okay. By the end of this year, I am confident we'll get the inventory back to where it needs to be.
When it comes to the CFO stuff, it's interesting because I struggle with I am our CFO and I'm like, I'm not the right person. I don't have these skills. I look at all these numbers all the time. I still don't fully understand retained income and equity and blah, the balance sheet. So it's interesting that you say that I'm probably in the right spot, that maybe I should be doing this.
And my guess is you've got a handle on the key things and you are watching. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a good accounting person there.
But when you had the CFO before the last one, did you feel the same way? I mean, it seems like this all slipped when he retired and you brought the new one in.
Well, I was on automatic pilot. There's stuff that I should have been looking at back then.
So it wasn't perfect back then either. You just didn't know. I'm
paying the price for
ignoring it.
20 years of basically ignoring it, like not watching the inventory enough. And it's not like I need to run the accounting department. It's a simple case of, it's what Lou Mosca talks about every week. It's about having maybe not even weekly, monthly meetings. Here's the numbers. Where's the inventory? Where's the receivables? And being the CEO. And I've always said I'm 80% entrepreneur and 20% manager.
But Jay, there's a big difference between having regular meetings and being on top of the numbers and serving as your own CFO. I would guess that if Lou Mosca were here, he would say that a company of your size needs to have a full-time CFO.
I'm not saying you shouldn't have a key accounting person. I'm suggesting that ultimately you need to watch those numbers and keep an eye on those numbers. So when I say be your own CFO, it means every business owner, and I wouldn't have said this 2 years ago, every business owner off the top of their head should know what their inventory is, should know what the receivables are running, should know what their contribution margin is. And Laura, I believe you know all those things. So you're doing a good job at that.
Jay, you've told us in the past that you debated telling your buyers just to stop buying, but you hated doing that because you thought that was like Samson's hair, that what you do is sell cool, interesting stuff, and you need a constant flow of that. How did you resolve that?
I was half right. My new thing is, look, here's where we're at. We need to get this inventory down. Buy half as much stuff, be more selective with what you buy, and let's get more aggressive with getting rid of the stuff that isn't selling well. Let's mark it down quicker. It's a management thing. And and you know what? Everyone that works for me, I didn't hire anybody away from a retailer. I took them from kids out of college that with a theater degree, who has turned out to be extremely competent and talented. I need to teach him how to run it. And I also never grew up in the furniture business. So I've had to figure it out. And so now the answer is here, spend X dollars this year instead of Y. But I let it go too far. And that was the artist part of me talking. You don't want to slow down. Yeah, that's people go.
Have you made any progress on buying technology, a software platform that will help you track your inventory better?
No. I'm working on that. That's a huge undertaking. That it's triage. The triage at the moment, this is the year to get my inventory back under control. And I'm working on the technology thing, but that is no easy flick. You would think oh, furniture store, there must be 20 programs out there. Yeah, not really. We've interviewed some of them. Not really. It's trickier than it looks. And when you hear these ads on the radio about NetSuite or whatever, it's like you would spend millions of dollars with some of that. It's not that easy. And Laura, you have a huge advantage over me in that regard. Your husband's your chief technology officer. I don't have that.
Laura, do you have technology that keeps track of your yarn inventory?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Would it work for Jay?
Maybe, but I wouldn't use it. No, it's too custom to us.
Yeah. The problem is I'm the largest framing place anywhere. As a result, no one's software is set up to handle the size of my business. So I'm too big to use stuff that's out there that's canned, and I'm too small to write my own program. To go write my own program, I've come to understand, would be $1 million. That would
be crazy. But Laura, you're switching from custom to a canned program, aren't you?
In some parts of the business, yes, but not in other parts of the business. So in the manufacturing side, we're not switching to canned. We're keeping the custom stuff.
Having Doug do your software is absolutely one of your strengths in the business.
100%.
Well, you could hire a Doug, couldn't you, Jay?
Well, yeah, but he's back to it's going to cost him $1 million.
Yeah. And my son is in charge of it, and he's doing a very good job with it, but he's frankly overwhelmed. I got 4 different businesses. I will fix it, but it's going to take some time. It's not as simple as you would think.
No, I agree.
Yeah, it's really way more complicated than is imaginable. And you're talking to someone to remind you again, when I started in business, there was no computer. So this isn't my thing. So, yeah. So that's the next challenge. The first one is inventory. I'm going to get that all taken care of this year. And then next year we're working on the technology thing, but I wish it was as simple as a plug and play. Oh, call up so-and-so. Trust me, if I could write a check for $200,000 right now and get it all done, I would do it in a second. It's not that simple.
Well, maybe. Doug probably could adapt our system for that. For $200,000.
You just bought Doug.
Take him a weekend. It would take him a weekend, though.
Do you want me to wire the money, or can I mail you a check? How does that work?
All right. My thanks to Jay Goltz, Sarah Segal, and Laura Zander, and to our sponsor, The Great Game of Business, which helps businesses use an open book management system to build healthier companies. You can learn more at greatgame.com. Thanks, everybody. Wait, don't leave yet. If you have a question or a comment that you'd like the 21 Hats owners to address, send it to me by replying to your morning report or by email at lauren@21hats.com. That's LOREN@21hats.com. Do it now before you forget. And don't be afraid to tell Jay what you really think. He can take it. And if you got something out of this conversation, help us reach more business owners. Tell a friend. Subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to the Morning Report at 21hats.com. This episode was produced by Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. Okay, now you can leave. Thanks for listening, everyone.